Amazon has a great framework of working backwards, right? It's part of our culture. We always work backwards from the customer, and user experience is basically that. You always start with what is that end experience you want to deliver to the customer.
When you hear the term UX, UXD, user experience design, I bet you think about user interfaces and user interfaces only. In reality, UXD isn't just about the screens or the interfaces. It's about the whole user experience. Today, my guest is Shilpa Bhat. She's a principal UX designer at AWS. She leads the UX design team for Amazon Intelligent Operations. When I was visiting Bay Area, we took a short walk and we talked about how design shapes products far beyond user interfaces. We also discussed what engineers and UXDs can do to work better together. I'm Mustafa Torun, and this is Walk the Talk, Builder Conversations. Shilpa, when I first worked with a UXD, I thought it's about user interface. I learned the hard way. It is about the experience. It's not just the interface.
It's a pretty common thing to say UX UI designers or UX UI work. UX is much more than just the UI. So if I had to take an analogy, imagine you're going to a restaurant. Your user experience would be if you just focused on, let's say, the food. But UX is about how easy was it for you to make a reservation, how you were welcomed in the restaurant, how the ambience was. Was it too noisy? Was it distracting? And then how was your order taken? When the food arrived, if you had any issues, how were they solved? How was the payment experience? Did the bill sort of come too early, come too late? Did you feel rushed? How did you feel about eating at that place makes the user experience, and user interfaces could be like a part of it, let's say just the menu. So if you focused on just the menu, then you wouldn't have a good end-to-end experience. We've had experiences where we go to a place, the food was okay, but let's say you had a really bad billing experience, and that affects how you feel about that place.
That resonates a lot. You have no idea. I had my fair share of restaurant experiences, and I agree. When I go out dining, I'm not going there to just feed myself. I'm going to spend some time there. I'm going to meet with my friends. It's an experience. That was a really good analogy. What advice do you have for colleagues working with UXDs?
Amazon has a great framework of working backwards, right? It's part of our culture. We always work backwards from the customer, and user experience is basically that. You always start with what is that end experience you want to deliver to the customer. If somebody's coming to your restaurant, how do you want them to feel about it? And then you work backwards from it, where the restaurant will be, who the chef will be, what the ambience, the architecture will be, what kind of lighting will be. So you always work backwards from the customer's goal, the customer's problem, rather than thinking about what we have right now and how can we retrofit it to deliver some things. I would urge whenever anyone, product managers or engineers, are working with UX designers, think about what is that ideal customer experience and then figure out how we achieve it.
And you mentioned the word, you said customer goal. With UXD, you have a goal.
Yeah.
Right?
Customer goal comes from the product management or product creation philosophy of jobs to be done. Customers are always hiring us to do a job for them. It's very important to understand what is customers' goal, what are they hiring us to do for them? Because if we don't deliver, they're going to stop using our product. So to understand what is the customer goal, you can spell it out. It could be, for example, the space we are in, Mustafa. It could be to resolve an issue very quickly. There's something that is wrong, and customer's goal is to fix that issue, to basically figure out what's wrong and fix it, and also then figure out how to not let it happen again. So how do we design experiences that optimize that workflow and help customers achieve that goal?
For many customers, the entry point is console. When they go into our console and try to accomplish something, if something is not in the place they expect it to be, that's a frustration point. If these things add up, then the whole experience, like the restaurant example you gave, is ruined. So drawing products from real life, this building we are in, the sixth floor is my favorite. There is this damn door. It's called Norman door, I think. When you are going to go through that door, you shouldn't think whether you need to pull or push, how you operate. And this damn door, every time, I just try to push and it's actually a pull.
A product should communicate how users interact with it. Like when you see a cup of coffee, you know where you're supposed to hold it from and which end goes to your mouth. It's pretty self-explanatory. It doesn't need a manual. Norman door. In the first go, it's not communicating what the customer needs to do. And there's a little bit of trial and error. You eventually figure it out.
No, No,
But
this door I never.
you feel that way. Okay.
I've walked through that 50 times now. And every
Right.
time I'm approached, now I'm conscious. I'm like, which
Right.
way was it?
Right.
And I still get it wrong.
The product is not doing well, then the customers would either have a steep learning curve or would not be able to achieve their goal. And in terms of how does it tie to the console, one thing to think about is if a customer's goals require them to use multiple services, how do we think about that end-to-end experience and not just think about the part that we might own? Stuff like for a lot of jobs, customers have to do something in the IAM console. How do you build the connective tissue so that going back and forth between console, for example, is easier? Or can you surface things contextually? See, we are doing some of those things with Sidecar, where the sidecar follows you wherever you go. So it reduces the number of jumps you have to make to different consoles.
Is it a stretch to say working backwards is UX?
Totally. It's totally that, because if you look at the definition of user experience as user-centered design, user is the center of everything we do. We start from the user, and Amazon's working backwards is exactly that.
So what do you expect from an engineer when you are partnering with them?
A lot of engineering and UX have very complementary goals. We always want to start with the why. We want to start with like, why is it that we are building? And then figure out like, how do we deliver it? To answer your question in terms of what engineers could keep in mind is bring UX early on to sort of understand what are the UX implications of this project. Maybe it is not as trivial as we might start out by thinking, because there's no standard patterns and one needs to think through. One of the teams I was working on were open sourcing the software of the service because they wanted more users to be able to use it. And if you hear about it, it just seems like an engineering thing. Yeah, sure, open source it, make it available through GitHub, write a bunch of documentation on how customers can use it, and off you go. There's no UX involved, there's no console experience involved, there's nothing. They were pretty close to basically just shipping this experience. We'll just put it out there. As designers, we kind of learned about it and we dive deep through a workshop to understand what is the user's goal. And eventually, if you want somebody to use an open source software, it requires them to do a whole lot of work. Before they can commit to it, they would like to see some examples of what they can achieve with this software. And that was a big adoption barrier for an engineer to see, okay, what can I do with this software? We sort of proposed as design team that we should have some sample projects in which developers could see short videos of other developers using this software. So we tapped into our AWS solution architects and influencers and had them do little fun projects, made videos of them. Once they see this announcement of open source, we tell them, hey, here is a library of projects, and that will inspire and that will influence somebody to go through the trouble of adopting the thing, brainstorming an idea and coming up with a solution. Just putting an open source software out there is not going to just automatically attract users. And so that was an interesting thing. And we ended up doing marketing collaterals and console collaterals. User testing is another thing to sort of keep in mind. I think oftentimes it kind of gets skipped, unfortunately, in the process of building products. If we have a design, it may not be just something that's final. Can we show it in a guerrilla testing way? It doesn't have to be very formal user testing, but our customers are developers. We get people in the room and share and get ideas. I think the iterative product thinking approach is also something that I think engineers and designers can do together. Seeing them struggle with something you thought was too obvious, and you can make pretty fast, quick changes. Like moving buttons, for example, is actually a pretty easy change to make. And if you do those kind of changes before launch, you can save a lot of like usability issues after when your customers face.
Whenever I use my own products, only then I get to see how it feels. When I'm in a meeting room trying it with a smaller screen, it's a different experience than I'm sitting on my desk and I have this large screen in front of me.
Right.
I have a lot more real estate, so it's a different experience. I encourage owners of features, products out there to use their products regularly,
Right.
to be aware of the customer experience themselves.
We should be dog fooding our products day in and out. What is the customer trying to do? Try to do it yourself. Observing users also helps in terms of how they use it. An engineer might have multiple tabs open and they're toggling between different tabs to achieve their goals. That could be an insight. Like, how could you avoid sort of using that?
This was a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great to be here,
Looking
Mustafa.
forward to the next one.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
For me, it's always.
You can go theater doors first.
There was a project that I was working on.
This was about what?
Can I tell the
Sorry,
project
I was
name?
gonna edit this.